Hi, friends. We are back here for Chapter 6. Remember that Chapter 6 will be from Maxie's perspective. When I get home after school, my whole house smells like chicken and dumplings. Grandma, that sure smells good, I say, and I'm real glad my grandma likes to baby me after all. How was school, she says. Was your teacher mad you were late? Not really, I say, trying not to meet her eye. It's best not to talk about anything else that happened today, especially the part about backtalking my teacher. Now, about this morning, Maxie, I really think you ought to give your daddy's friend a chance. Who knows? Maybe you might decide that you... Grandma, I'm going to say hello to my mama now, I say, cutting her off. If there's anything I don't want to do right now, it's talk about someone named Lisa. My grandma's face gets real soft for a second, but she doesn't say nothing. Just reaches her hand out to touch my chin. Okay, sure, baby, go ahead. In my room, I have a little corner that is just my mother. First, I have some pictures of her, all standing up in nice frames. I have her watch and her rings in a little glass dish that was once hers, and a bottle of her favorite Prince Michibelli perfume that my father said I can start wearing when I get old enough. My mother died in a car accident 3 years ago. I was with her in the car, but I don't remember anything about it. All I remember was waking up in the hospital. At first, they didn't tell me what happened, but then they did. I was 7 and she was 38. I pick up my favorite picture of her. It's the one of us together when I was a baby in the hospital. She looks tired and sweaty from having me, and her hair is all messed up, but her face looks so happy. I wish I could remember that day. Hi, Mama, I say, and I think about telling her the bad news that my daddy has a new girlfriend. Maybe. But then I decide I don't want to, because if my mother knew something like that, maybe she wouldn't come back to me. I know it's a stupid thing to think about. I know it's never really going to happen. I know she won't actually come back to me, but sometimes I still like to imagine what it would be like if my mother did come back. Maybe I'd be sitting around watching TV and I'd hear a knock at the door. When I open it, it'll be her. Or one day I might be riding around on a train and the lady next to me will smile, and it'll be my mama's smile. I just had to see you, baby, she'll say, because I missed you so much. I missed you more, Mama, is what I would tell her. I missed you so much that sometimes it actually hurt. Maxie, my grandma calls from the other room, I got a surprise for you. When I come home in a sad mood, there's nothing can get me out of it except one thing, sitting by my grandma's big leg, watching TV and eating popcorn. But I would never tell my grandma that. There's no telling how she would lord something like that over me. I think maybe she knows anyway, because when I go to the living room, there's my grandma sitting on the couch with a big bowl of popcorn on her lap. She even gives me the clicker. Now, don't eat too much popcorn, she says. I don't want you to spoil your appetite. I'm just about to switch the channel to Nickelodeon when the newscaster comes on to say, now we'll be learning from our foreign correspondent in Kosovo. Hey, I say, there's a girl in my class that comes from there. Well, for goodness sake, turn it up, Grandma says. I have to say, what we see next is kind of a shock to me, because it looks like that place where Drita comes from is nothing but a war. The camera just keeps showing a lot of people running, and buildings falling down, and babies crying, and then they show some kind of marketplace where a bomb went off and some people lying on the ground look like they're dying. And that is when my grandmother takes the clicker from my hand. She shuts it off quickly. That's plenty of TV for tonight, she says. Dang, Grandma, it's not going to upset me. I've seen worse stuff than that on MTV, I say. Don't curse. I just said dang. Well, don't say it. It sounds like cussing and I don't like it, she says. And I can tell that there is no arguing with her on that one. When my grandma makes up her mind about something, you can't just change it. She pulls herself up off the couch and goes into the kitchen, shuffling her feet across the rug in her old, broken-down nurse's shoes. My grandma always complains she's got bad feet from almost 30 years of working as the head nurse at Roosevelt Hospital. That's why I saved up $12 at Christmas time to buy her a nice, cushy pair of slippers. Only problem is, she never wears them. Secretly, I think she likes those funky old nurse shoes better. Don't worry, baby. I'm saving those new moccasins you gave me for a special occasion, she says, winking at me. My grandma and me are about as close as we can be, and in a lot of ways, we're just the opposite. For one thing, she always thinks the things that you see on TV are going to stay in your mind for a long time and ruin your brain. I think the things you see on TV hardly ever stay in your mind at all and might even make you smarter. But tonight, it seems like maybe she's right after all because I can't stop thinking about that news show all the way through my homework time and then even during dinner so that I hardly even taste my dumplings. Finally, when I'm in bed, Grandma comes in to shut the light off. Grandma, I made fun of her, I say, when it's nice and dark. Who, baby? My grandma says. I made fun of that girl from Kosovo, but I'm not going to do it again. Is that why you got in trouble with your teacher? She says. I swear, Grandma, you got ESP powers. How'd you know that? Well, whenever my baby comes home telling me everything was fine, I know that it means no such thing. Well, I'm glad you're so smart, Grandma. And I'm glad you learned your lesson, honey. You always got to be kind to people. Always. That's what your mama would have wanted. Now, sleep tight, she says, and shuts the door. I roll over on my side, and behind my eyes I see flashes of orange, look like bombs dropping, and I know my grandmother is right. Good night, Mama, I say. Good night. Okay, friends, so that is the end of chapter 6. And I don't know about you, but I feel like it's going to be a bit of a turning point in this chapter book's plot. I feel like it's going to be a turning point because it seems like things are starting to kind of come together for Maxie. She is realizing that this new girl is not weird. She's not just different. She is actually, there's a lot more to her that Maxie is figuring she wants to find out. Still a bit of a challenge because of that language barrier, but I feel like Maxie is going to find a way to break through that barrier and really get to know her new classmate, Drita. But the question I'm going to leave you with is not necessarily related to this specific chapter, but just so far what we've read in general. I know that you don't have a copy of this text, and so it might be a little bit you maybe have missed this, but I have been trying my best as I've been reading out loud to read certain words or certain lines in a different voice or perhaps with an accent. And I'm doing that because I know it's a little hard to see, but because some of the fonts and the letters in our English words are spelled a little differently so that we can get an idea as English readers and English speakers, we can kind of get an idea of the English that Drita is hearing and the English that Drita is also trying to speak so that we can get an idea of the accent. Not only just Drita's accent as she tries to speak English, but also the American accent as Americans speak English to her. So she's hearing English words with an Albanian accent. She's hearing words with an American accent. And she's also hearing Americans try to speak Albanian with an accent. So whenever we see text, here's another example. Whenever we see text that is maybe looking a little different, either in font or the letters don't match the way that we would spell the word. That's why. And sometimes when you hear me maybe change my voice, that's why. And there are also many words in here that are Albanian. And so then I don't know how to pronounce them. And many of those words I have looked up how to pronounce so that I can give it my best shot. But, I'm struggling. I'm struggling to pronounce those words. Some of them are Arabic, some of them are Albanian, and I'm struggling to pronounce them correctly. So the important part, though, is that we continue to try to pronounce those words. When they give us some trouble, we just have to keep trying. And on that note, I'm going to ask you again to empathize Remember, we talked a few chapters now that empathize means to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Try to imagine how they are feeling in this situation. Or in other words, see the situation from their perspective, which may be different from your perspective. So I'm going to ask you to do that again in this chapter to respond to the question that I will drop in the description. The question I'm going to ask you now is, I want you to think about someone close to you. In Maxie's case, it is her grandmother. And I want you to think about someone who's very close to you. How are you different from that person, but yet still very similar? So, for example, Maxie claims that she and her grandma are as close as can be. Right after she says they're as close as can be, she says, but they are also opposite in many ways. I want you to think, do you have anyone close to you who you feel very close with, but in a lot of ways, you're very different from one another? That's the question I want you to ponder as you wrap up this chapter, okay? So if you need that question repeated, you need to see it again, just look in the description of this video and it'll be there. I'll see you for chapter 7.